The vision. I should say that this is a very ambitious project, and one of the key things to making this successful is going to be having excellent scientists working on the project. And we're currently advertising for 4 posts, so if any of you in the audience, either yourselves or know people who'd like to apply, please do. So, building the science of behaviour change. As I said, this is extremely ambitious and aims, and I don't say this word lightly, but to revolutionise the ways in which we do 2 things. Firstly, build knowledge and understanding about behaviour change, but also to use that knowledge to answer real-world questions. And the real-world questions are variants of what works, compared with what, how well, with what exposure, with what behaviours, for whom, in what settings, and why. If that's a bit of a mouthful, it will be unpacked later on in the presentation. But whether one's a scientist, a policymaker, a practitioner, many of the questions we have are variants on parts of that overarching question. The method we're going to use to do this is to harness cutting-edge methodologies to build, firstly, an ontology of behaviour change interventions, and that will be outlined in detail later on. Secondly, an artificial intelligence system, including both natural language processing and machine learning. And thirdly, a user interface, including a query system for policies, practitioners, scientists, and all those wanting to answer the kind of questions I've outlined. And as I said, very importantly, this is a collaboration between 3 key sciences in this endeavour: behavioural, computer, and information science. This project would absolutely not be possible without all 3 of those sciences. And indeed is one of the very exciting things from my point of view to be working closely with scientists who I haven't worked, or scientific disciplines I haven't worked so closely with before. So what's the problem that we're trying to address? We estimate there are over 200 evaluations of behavioural interventions published each day. This is an enormous amount, and more than human beings can possibly make sense of or keep abreast of. The way in which these evaluations are reported when they're published is massively varied. So the same terms may be used for different concepts, the same concept expressed in different terms. Extremely difficult to synthesize or to draw theoretical conclusions about mediation, that is, how these interventions are having their effect, or moderation, i.e., how do they vary across population, across context, across behaviours, etc. And if we can't understand these things, we're not in a position to improve our interventions. And I should have said right at the beginning, but in a way it's the starting point that I think is the reason we're all here, is that changing behaviour is at the heart of solving all of the big problems that we're facing in society, whether it's health, climate change, environmental sustainability, social cohesion, etc. A third issue, a third problem, is context sensitivity. Most of the research that we look at has actually been done in the United States. And when there's somebody in a local authority, for example, taking decisions about what to do for a particular public health problem in their locality, the extent to which that research is relevant to their situation is often very questionable. So much of the literature that's published isn't directly relevant to the specific context in which that knowledge is being used. And fourthly, there's a real need for timeliness. When people want to use evidence, they want to use it to solve problems right now, to make decisions right now, to formulate policies. And research has shown the typical time for study results after they've been published to be included in published systematic reviews is anything from 2.5 to 6.5 years. And I think it was 8 years I was on NICE's Public Health Interventions Advisory Committee, I was acutely aware of that, that by the time we made recommendations for practitioners and policymakers, the recommendations we were making was informed by evidence that was many, many years ago in many different contexts. So these, I'd say, are the four key aspects of the problem that we're addressing. So, what do we need? We need collaboration between behavioural and information scientists with computer science, so that we can efficiently advance our understanding of behaviour and to answer these kind of questions that are coming from politicians, policymakers, practitioners. And we have a 4-year plan. Firstly, to build a behaviour change intervention ontology, which is a way of organising relevant information from research reports. So across that, all the heterogeneity and variability that I've mentioned, bringing it all into a tightly specified, structured ontology. Secondly, develop a natural language processing system to automatically find and extract the information, starting with the use case of smoking cessation. It's going to be very complicated, even just taking the first instance of smoking cessation. But we will build this so that we're not dependent on human beings trawling through at great length, only finding a small part of the literature, and then not really being able to synthesize adequately. Thirdly, developing machine learning and reasoning systems that will be able to integrate and extrapolate from that information to generate new knowledge and hypotheses about behaviour change. And this is where I think it gets very exciting, so that there'll be new predictions made that we can then go and test empirically. And fourthly, a user interface that will be able to answer questions about behaviour change interventions and also, importantly, explain its conclusions, how those answers were brought about, with what degree of confidence, etc. So, as I said, this is an extremely ambitious project. When we were interviewed, I was asked, how can you persuade us that you can do all of this in 4 years? And I said, I absolutely can't. But if we get down this route, we'll have made significant advance, even if we don't achieve everything that we set out to do. I also think there's no alternative. I really have, over the last 15 years or so that I've been in this field, I've really come to the conclusion that we really can't make theoretical progress or really significant progress in developing effective behaviour change interventions if we don't have a qualitative step up and, as I said, revolutionise the ways in which we do business. So I feel optimistic, confident and excited about the next 4 years, and I will now hand on to Robert West, who will talk about the preliminary ontology of behaviour change interventions. That is where we're starting from.